Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and we are going to react and break down the new trailer for The Acolyte. And a little bit later, I'm going to be joined by Colton Ogburn. We're going to watch it together and then break this baby down frame by frame. Also, we're doing this live. There's not a script, so you're going to get to see like our real, raw, live reactions and how we normally do a breakdown, like, you know, when it's just us watching videos. And I have a theory about The Acolyte that I've been thinking about for a while, and I've always wondered, there's a part of the Phantom Menace specifically that just doesn't make sense. It never made sense to me, but I think The Acolyte is going to solve a major plot hole from the prequel trilogy. So before we get started, guys, I just want to thank all of you for like watching Star Wars with us and clicking this video, and for shopping our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com, where we design all the merch ourselves. This May the 4th, we are running a sale until today ends, 15% off, and I am so excited to show you this brand new Always shirt, celebrating my all-time favorite scene from the saga. And we also just launched this You Were My Brother shirt, which documents one of the saga's most tragic stories, the relationship between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Also, we have lots of other awesome merch like Good Soldiers Follow Orders, Original Trilogy, High Ground, Where He Goes I Go, which shows Den and Grogu as E.T. and Elliot. We love designing these shirts for you guys, and really, shopping our merch store makes videos like this one a huge success. So we're gonna watch this trailer, which takes place during the High Republic era.
Or what's the High Republic? Is that like Cheech and Chong and Star Wars?
All right, I know a lot of you know this, but I'm going to briefly go over what the High Republic is before we watch this trailer, because frankly, if you don't know what the High Republic is, then the Acolyte's not going to make any sense to you. So the High Republic is a period of time that takes place a few hundred years before the Skywalker saga. It was based on a series of novels, books, YA novels, which quite frankly are excellent. They're not all excellent, but like Phase 1, chef's kiss, you have to read them, they're really great. So basically, the High Republic takes place during a time of expansion in Star Wars. It's when the Republic was starting to first reach these worlds in the Outer Rim. And the Jedi are very different. Like when we see the Jedi in the prequels, they're very dogmatic, they follow the will of the Senate, but like in these books, they're very separate from the Senate. They don't just do whatever the Senate says. So the High Republic follows these Jedi as they start to explore the Outer Rim, and they run into these space pirates called the Nihil, who are incredibly vicious and evil. They don't want power, they just want to like raid and kill people and to gather wealth and treasure. They're the antithesis of what the Jedi are. Now, the High Republic also introduces a lot of new aspects to the Jedi that we never saw in the prequels. For instance, they wear gold and white robes, which really kind of makes them seem like these glorious knights of the Republic, more like they're straight from Arthurian lore, whereas in the prequels, they wore like, you know, brown monk clothes, the same clothes that Uncle Owen wore on Tatooine. Also, the High Republic introduced different ideas, like Jedi, for instance, can have sexual relationships, they just can't form emotional attachments. They introduced one of my favorite ideas, the idea of way seekers. Now, a way seeker is a Jedi who doesn't follow the will of the Council, they follow the will of the Force. The Council still has to give them permission to do that, but then they can go off in the galaxy and find their own way. We see one Jedi, the great Jedi character named Elzar Mann, who at one point touches the dark side of the Force and then has to go on a meditation sabbatical to make sure that he doesn't continue down the dark path. Basically, the books and comics, like, they allow for a lot of nuance that you just don't get in the movies, because the movies are always about propelling this individual story forward for 2 hours. So if you haven't read the High Republic, I highly recommend it. The Acolyte's going to be very different though. The Acolyte takes place about, I think it's 80 years before the Phantom Menace, still technically in the High Republic era. In fact, I think the Acolyte's going to show us how the High Republic era actually ends. So the High Republic takes place after the Nihil have been defeated, and by the way, that's not a spoiler. We know the Nihil were defeated because, well, I'm going to go down a weird geeky rabbit hole. There's this book called Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view that's about it's got these short stories in it. One story called The Veteran by a friend of the channel, Adam Lance Garcia, mentions that the Nihil were destroyed. So like we know, and plus when the prequels start, the Nihil aren't around, so we know they're destroyed. Anyways, this show I think is going to show us the end of the High Republic era, and as we transition into the era of the Clone Wars and the downfall of the Jedi. And of course, the downfall of the Jedi were caused by the Sith. And in this show, we are going to see how the Sith start to re-emerge, as we're, I hope, going to see in this trailer. So Colton, are you with me? You still stuck in the TV?
What was that, Ryan? I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, he's in the TV. You can't always see him on this version of it, though. Colton Ogburn, by the way, guys, is the guy who's trapped eternally in our television but doesn't know it, so please don't tell him. So, Colton, the first trailer I loved for The Acolyte. To me, it looks like exactly what Star Wars needs to be. Anything you want to say before we watch this, baby?
No, play it. I'm very excited.
All right,
I want to watch it.
Yeah, I'll stop filling time. Here we go.
A Jedi was murdered.
The Jedi justify their galactic dominance in the name of peace.
Oh, that's cool.
Is a lie.
That people already aren't like rah-rah Jedi.
Yeah.
Oh, that fight looks so cool.
Jedi are being hunted.
Mm.
She was my student. I trained her. Let me
Remind me
be the
to
one
yeah,
bring
remind me to talk about this later. There's precedents for this in High Republic, like where a student falls from the path and joins.
Yeah.
This is only a small part of a larger plan.
God, I just love the designs of these robes.
To tip
Oh.
the scales.
Oh.
That's Acto, right?
There. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. By the okay.
It's time to face the past.
Oh my God, these look so good.
Anonymous force.
Anonymous.
If you want to pull the
Uh huh.
and change everything.
There it is.
What are you?
Oh. Oh, we actually get to see the Sith in it. Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. All right, so I feel like I'm bad at reaction videos because I always forget to emote when I'm watching things. I
Yeah.
just kind of internalize a lot of stuff. So that's super exciting. I think we're going to go through it like frame by frame in just a second. But what are your first thoughts? Like, what's your hot reaction from that?
Oh my God, it looks great. I am so excited for. I know this is kind of the High Republic. It's the High Republic era, but it's also like at the tail end of it. So it's also kind of it has a lot of that prequel era feel, and that's something I've always wanted Star Wars to explore, like whether it be and like a Disney Plus series or whatever. So I am excited to see like this, just kind of this moment of peace in the galaxy, the Jedi at their height, but also just this boiling like corruption and evil and right at the the bottom, and it's about to just spew over, and we know what happens. So I'm very excited for the show.
And one thing I thought was interesting in there is when the guy's given the talk and he says, the Jedi think they're all so big and important, but they're not. You see that it's a little bit in the High Republic because the Nihil, like in the Path of the Open Hand, they spread all these rumors about the Jedi. They make people not like them. But you don't really see much of that in the prequels. Clone Wars, and shows like Rebels, you get a little bit of people thinking, well, the Jedi caused the war and the Jedi betrayed the Chancellor. But this is the first time I've ever heard like live action Star Wars getting to hear people be like, no, the Jedi aren't all they're cracked up to be. It's basically you can see the seeds for Palpatine's lies are already there, how he turned the galaxy against them.
And you mentioned we got to see Ahch-To, which is, of course, where Luke is in The Last Jedi. And it's in The Last Jedi where we hear Luke talk about the hubris of the Jedi and everything. And we got to see that in the prequels. But I really think with this being at the tail end of the High Republic and how it's the Jedi's fall, I think we're going to get to see that hubris, that corruption, just their confidence, their overconfidence, and how that is their fall. And so, I think that's what we're going to be seeing.
Which again ties into a theory that I have a little bit later about a massive plot hole in the prequels that I really have, especially after watching the new trailer. I think that this is going to solve. So let's have some fun. Let's go through this baby a little bit, like bit by bit. I think I'm just going to scrub through and let's break down some things.
It's like what we do for a breakdown. Yeah.
So this is like. In case you guys don't know, this is what Colton and I usually do in a trailer drop. So get on the phone with the whole team. We'll just kind of go through this. So instead of getting a scripted thing, and I don't know if Doug's going to be able to chime in or not, if he's got any thoughts on this, but feel free, Doug, if you're wanting to.
No, I'm good. You guys go ahead.
Okay. So we start off on what looks like, I think it's probably not Ahch-To because there's way too many islands in it. And the whole point of Ahch-To is it's like one island on a water planet. Yeah. One thing I'm really, really digging about this show is, we've got all these Disney Plus shows, which for the most part, especially Andor, look fantastic. They're tactile, they're real, they follow in the mold of the sequel trilogy and Rogue One, but we're getting to see Jedi. The prequels had their own visual style, but they felt very artificial. And this is like real sets, but with Jedi, which we've never really gotten to see before.
Well, and it's also the prequels. I mean, they had that artificial feel, but they were also beautiful, like the designs for it. So it's kind of like we're getting to see like an actual, like you said, tactile, real like real sets of those prequel designs. So yeah, it's instead of just like a blue screen or something.
Yeah, and what we've got here at the beginning, this looks like it takes place. One thing you guys watch the channel, you know this. One thing I love about Star Wars is how it can take really old things like medieval guilds or inns or restaurants and apply like some science fiction to it. So the big centerpiece that we keep seeing in this footage is Carrie-Anne Moss's character. And I don't remember character names for the show yet, so I'm just going to call them by the actors. Her fighting this assassin inside of kind of like a little shack restaurant that looks like something you would see in medieval times. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that right here. So the story, from what we gather from the trailer, is that there was a young apprentice who left the Jedi Order, and that she was this guy's apprentice, the guy from Squid Game. And she left. She's not a full-fledged Sith. She's like using a dagger and stuff, right? Maybe a Sith dagger, like C-3PO's magic Sith dagger in Rise of Skywalker. But she's, for some reason, is assassinating Jedi Knights. It could be, there is this Darth Vader comic book where like right after Revenge of the Sith, he's not allowed to have a lightsaber yet. And Palpatine sends him off to kill a Jedi without a saber to like earn his sword. So that could be what's happening. Maybe she's using a knife for that reason, or maybe she just doesn't like the Jedi. Maybe she's got an axe to grind against them, similar to like Barasafi after the Clone Wars. So Colton, what we're looking at here, we got Coruscant, the Jedi Temple.
I love that shot of the Jedi Temple, by the way. Very cool.
Yeah, it looks awesome. One thing I'm wondering if we're ever going to get to see the Jedi Temple as it exists during the Imperial era, because it becomes the Emperor's palace, but we've never really seen it. Yeah, from like in Survivor, we saw it from the outside, but we've never like seen his throne room. It's been in the novels and stuff. And then we've got youngling training, and it's cool to see how they took some things that we've seen in like the comics, but not really seen in the movies. You know, we've seen like the little kids training, but these are the kids who are the age right before they get to go to Ilum and get their kyber crystals, right? So these are the kids who basically, go ahead. I'll just talk the whole time. I love Star Wars.
I like to see that they have like the wooden, training sabers instead of an Attack of the Clones when we saw those even smaller than those kids with the lightsabers. Yeah.
I've always thought that those lightsabers would be like just light, like they would just go like this and not cut anything off. That's always kind of what I thought, and it's more just because, but probably not though. They probably are just giving toddlers little laser swords. So they're using the Boku staffs, which is a very good observation. And of course, they're wearing the High Republic golden whites. And then, we've seen this in the comics, but we haven't seen a group this age training together before they actually get to go get their kyber crystals. And the thing is, when they go to Ilum, if they don't get their kyber crystal, if it doesn't sing to them, then they go home. They don't get to be Jedi. Right. And in the phase 2 of the High Republic, one of the villains is one of the people this happened to, somebody who was not advanced and resents the Jedi for it. And I'm wondering if the Sith assassin is going to be like that character.
Never got her saber
through here. I don't recognize the species of this one in front, actually. She reminds me, there's a High Republic Jedi named Indira Stokes who looks like this a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, she has the horns on her head, so that makes me always go Zabrag. But no, I'm not thinking.
Not a Zabrag.
Yeah.
Well, who knows these days? Okay, let's take a look here. We're not going to do like a scrub through and look at every single shot, but I want to just kind of call attention to a few different things here, right? So, we're getting to see, this is after the Nihil were beaten. And one thing we know for sure about Star Wars is the Outer Rim remains terrible. The Republic never fully settled it. The Empire never fully settled it. They basically ceded ground to gangsters. So I think that however the High Republic novels end with the Nihil being defeated, that the Republic is not really going to finish expansion into the Outer Rim. I think that that's going to put the kibosh on that. And I think here we're seeing some of that. I think we're seeing like the underworld in the outer part of the galaxy, right?
And also here's an example of something we would do in a breakdown. These little red force fields here. Phantom Menace vibes right there. I went and saw Phantom Menace last night. Yeah. You reminded me of that final battle.
Yeah. Which of course represents hell and the Sith and all this other stuff. So here we see the assassin character. We saw a good look at her in the first trailer. Talking to this guy who's basically, crapping on the Jedi. Yeah. She keeps getting exposed to people. There's another person later in the trailer who might be from the Path of the Open Hand, who also is saying like there's no
Yes.
anonymous force controlling your destiny, you control your own destiny. So here's some more of that fight we were talking about where she's fighting Carrie-Anne Moss, and it just looks so good. I want to play this through for a second. And these visuals are just stunning. I'm going to miss streaming budgets. You know, I think the streaming industry is going to collapse, so we're not going to get shows that look this good forever.
Yeah,
And
it's
Go ahead.
it's nice to see. Yeah, that it looks so cinematic. You know, it looks like a Star Wars movie. It's nice to see them putting that attention to detail in it. I hope that doesn't go away, but
Hey, who is this? It looks like they're in some sort of is this the this is the alleyway fight we saw in the other trailer, right? Where she
yes,
is
yeah.
jumping on a wall and attacking another Jedi. Okay, cool. All right, so just going to keep scrubbing through. So this group here,
Oh.
right, with the robes, I think they might be, if I'm just going to be forced to throw out a theory here, I'm going to say they're the remnants of the Path of the Open Hand.
I
So the
agree.
Path of the Open Hand was this cult in phase 2. They had these 3 lines they wore. They basically believed that you should never use the Force, that you were like damaging the Force by using it.
Right.
And then they evolved into the Nihil, but they still exist at the same time as the Nihil. They're just like have very low membership. I think it would be really cool if they were able to bring back that, if we saw like the final defeat of those High Republic villains. Although I don't see any, the Path of the Open Hand always have like stripes on their faces.
Right.
I see circles here on this woman's face. I think this woman's the leader. We saw her in the last trailer,
Yeah.
but I'm not seeing like the 3 stripes. So it could be a different cult too.
And Ryan, you know better than I about High Republic stuff. There was a line in the trailer where the leader, she mentions like a thread of fate or whatever, and that made me think of the Great Mothers from Ahsoka and how they were the based on the fates and all that. And I know from my little bit of knowledge of the Path of the Open Hand that they had like a leader that was referred to as the mother. Is there any connection between them and like the Night Sisters?
No, not really. Although you bring up a good point that the Night Sisters are kicking right now. Like they are in the galaxy doing their thing on Dathomir. They mostly keep to themselves. But this is the same, like we've, in the Clone Wars, we saw the Night Sisters interact with the Jedi and Palpatine and everybody, but we never really saw the Night Sisters live action in their heyday. And that would be a great thing to get to see in this show. Like just the idea of setting a show prior to the Phantom Menace is so exciting because we get to see all of these things like, and you know me, I'm like most excited for the James Mangold movie, but that's a whole other thing. Let's just keep scrubbing through here. Take a look at some of these shots. I'm just going to keep calling her the assassin because I'm lazy and I didn't memorize names. When we don't have a script, that's the kind of thing that goes by the wayside. We don't have names. So a lot of this is what we saw in the last trailer. I don't want to focus on that too much because if you guys want to see our last trailer breakdown, it's on the channel right now. I don't right off the bat recognize that planet. So what
Maybe
we're seeing
Kashyyyk?
here,
They look kind of green.
it could be Kashyyyk. Yeah, it'd be fun. So what we're seeing here basically is the Jedi have basically been, I'm going to guess, unopposed since the Nihil, right? They defeated the last big threat a few hundred years before this.
Yeah.
This is the first time they've been targeted by somebody who could actually like use the Force, right? And maybe they're actually sensing the dark side or something. So I think that's why, notice they're not doing a massive thing. They're not getting a whole bunch of Jedi Masters together and an army or sending people in. They're keeping it small. And we see this all throughout Jedi history where, like, for instance, there's these monsters in the High Republic called the Nameless or the Leveler, and they feed off the Force. They will, like, a Jedi can't even see them, right? And they're just these monstrous entities, and they'll bleed a Jedi dry until they turn to ash. Yeah. And Yoda decides to keep it a secret. Like after they defeat the Levelers a few hundred years before the High Republic Phase 1. It's a long story. Basically, High Republic Phase 2 is a prequel, Star Wars. But Yoda says, keep it a secret because we don't want a lot of people to know about these. And he does the same thing. Colton, you pointed this out in a video. He does the same thing in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. He says, we can't tell the Senate that our ability to use the Force has been compromised because we'll have new enemies. So they're keeping this secret because we're starting to see some of that corruption we talked about earlier, aren't we?
And it's showing us that Yoda is not immune to that. He is just as big a part of it, whether he intends to be or not. Yeah.
And then we go to Acto here, and this is the site of the first Jedi Temple where the Prime Jedi founded the Order. It was a hidden place. And, you know, Colton, in the last video we did, you did a great follow-up that talked about this figure right here, right? And we did a lot of speculation about this guy and how it would be really interesting because the Sith split off of the Jedi Order, what, 1,000 or 5,000 years before this. So this, for the Sith, this would equally be a sacred place for them, you know, where their order also began. So tell me who you think this could be.
Well, I think it's a Bith Lord. I think it's Darth Tenebrois, who was, or Teneboris. I'm sorry, it's never been spoken. It's only been read. He is a
however you choose to pronounce it.
Yeah, he is a character who he's a Dark Lord of the Sith. He was the master of Darth Plagueis, who was the master of Darth Sidious, Palpatine, and it would line up perfectly. If you look at the year of when this takes place, at this time, Darth Plagueis would be about 14 years old. So I think, and that's when he would be serving as an apprentice to his Dark Lord master. So I do think that this could be the master of Darth Plagueis. Here on Octo, we know that there's a dark side presence on that planet, as we saw in The Last Jedi. So yeah, and I also think that would be the perfect place for the Sith to be hiding out and not be detected, perhaps by the Jedi.
Well, the Jedi don't know where it is, so it took Luke forever to find it. So the interesting thing here is we see this assassin character, this former Jedi who's got an axe to grind against them. You would think that she's either being groomed to be a new Sith or that she joins the Sith throughout it. But like you said, the years don't really line up. You know, if Plagueis is going to be about 14 years old, and we don't know what species Plagueis was, by the way. Plagueis doesn't have to be Darth. It doesn't have to be Darth Tenebris. This could be Plagueis, and he could be a really long-lived species, right?
Yes.
But then it would be interesting because we're kind of knowing ahead of time that this woman does not become a Sith. But you can still be a Sith. Like, you can be Sith adjacent. There were Sith Inquisitors. There are Sith Acolytes in The Rise of Skywalker. There's the guys in the arena who, like, you know, do the football chants for Palpatine.
Well, and I think it's possible that we're going to see the assassin and perhaps a young Darth Plagueis and maybe some other characters trying to become that Sith apprentice, like trying with this rebuilding of the Sith. There can only be two. Perhaps we're seeing perhaps with the killings of the Jedi and stuff, maybe this is a contest. Who can bring me the most Jedi, and you can become my apprentice.
It's basically what Palpatine kept doing. Palpatine had Darth Maul, replaced him with Dooku, replaced him with Anakin, and then even with Darth Vader, he had the Sith Inquisitors, all of whom were kind of jockeying for control. You know, the Emperor believes in survival of the fittest, you know, only the strong survive. And he kept everybody, including Imperial officers, at their throats all through the saga. I wonder then if we do see Plagueis in this trailer toward the end, but let's talk about that when we get there, because we do get to actually see the Sith.
Right, around the assassin's deck there. What is that? Is that a...
Looks like kyber crystal,
like
isn't it?
Kyber crystal? Yeah. Like
and I'm colorblind. Is it red?
It's green. It's green.
Okay. Well, then there's that. That could be the kyber crystal that maybe she got in Ilum, or maybe she stole it and wasn't afforded a chance to become a Jedi because she stole the kyber crystal, or maybe she just became disillusioned. Go ahead.
The Jedi she was fighting, what's the actress's name? Had a green lightsaber. Maybe she gets her kyber crystal.
Carrie-Anne Moss could be. Like, instead of being like Grievous and collecting lightsabers, she collects crystals.
Right.
Interesting, because this is her confronting her old master, right? And then we see just more stunning visuals. God, running through the woods with the woods on fire. Just a gorgeous looking show. Okay. And again, we're not really breaking down the words. We're kind of just going through doing the audio. Here's the woman who we were thinking might be leading this call to Path of the Open Hand. Go ahead, Colton.
And no one is safe from the truth. I mean, that's playing into, you know, just our idea of there is a cover up happening. There are lies happening. The Jedi are not being honest, and they're inadvertently kind of orchestrating their own downfall with their cover up.
Which again is ties into that plot hole that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit when we finish kind of scrubbing through this trailer. So classic knocking over a table to use as a shield. Everybody in movies always makes tables out of material that can stop bullets and laser guns.
Right.
And just, in general, like these new generation of Star Wars shows, right, with the exception of Ahsoka, they all are shows that I just want to watch on a projector. They have these epic visual scales that, some of the shots we've seen in this are just mind blowing. Again, I don't want to spend too much time just getting these raw reactions. So I do want to watch this again, just straight through. Okay, this is the scene in the woods where we actually get to see the face of the Sith Lord. Last trailer, we only saw the saber get thrown. Here we go again.
And pull it.
Oh.
Is he breathing through a breather mask too?
Yeah, he's got on some type of helmet, kind of like an Inquisitor. Yeah.
Or like Vader's, like they always have that kind of tapered samurai thing, but also like Kylo Ren's, right?
Yeah, and all Sith seem to have some type of breathing issue.
Yeah, right, except for Darth Maul. Yeah. Dooku was old and he could breathe well. So that's interesting to me because showing that helmet looking like Kylo Ren's, because Kylo Ren's helmet wasn't because he was a Sith. He was never really a Sith, but he was a Knight of Ren. And the comics kind of go into more detail and explain the Knights of Ren. They were dark side users, but like not very good ones. Like they were warriors who like had a very light touch of force sensitivity. So they never would have become like true Sith apprentices, at least during the Imperial era. But Kylo Ren obviously was extremely powerful with the Force, so he was kind of both. So it makes me wonder, are we going to see that origin? The Knights of Ren, is that going to play into this too? How much of the sequel trilogy that they never explained, kind of like how the Bad Batch had to hold like how somehow Palpatine returned up on their shoulders, maybe we're going to get the Knights of Ren in this as well. God, that just looks so good.
I want to compliment the trailer, the creators, that musical just scrape when they revealed the Sith. It sounded like in like a horror film, like when you see the devil for the first time, like that demonic being. That they did a phenomenal job at just making that Sith seem terrifying. And then he says, "Not who are you, what are you?" So they're doing a great job at just making it this evil entity. Yeah.
And one thing I'm really excited about, I did a whole video about this before. I just want to see different Star Wars. I love Andor. I love stuff in the Imperial era. I love stuff post Return of the Jedi. But I'm a little tired of, like how long is Ahsoka going to be alive for? Like all these characters, like we just keep going back to the well. And I'm really excited to just see something new, like a new area of Star Wars. And I think it's exciting. That's what Star Wars needs a lot more of. I still want to see, Luke go up against Thrawn in Dave Filoni's movie. I'd rather see Luke recast and played by a cartoon character. But I'm so excited for this. Like Andor was a show, for instance, that I thought I didn't need. And then when I saw Andor, I was like, I can't believe I existed before this show came out. So Colton, thanks very much for coming on, watching the trailer with me. Now I want to get into talking to you guys about this plot hole that I think this movie is going to solve. I think the show is going to solve. So did anybody else ever think it was weird that in the Phantom Menace, they make a point to say, well, the Sith have been extinct for over 1,000 years.
The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
We did a whole video where Yoda looks over at him when he says that, right? Like Yoda gives this idea that, well, maybe they're not extinct, right? Yoda would have not been alive 1,000 years before that when the Sith were supposedly beaten, but it seems like it's common knowledge the Sith have been defeated. But then why is there a prophecy to bring balance to the Force? They specify in the movie, I think it's in episode 3, Obi-Wan says to Yoda, is Anakin not the chosen one, the one who's destined to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force? Why would they, like when Anakin shows up and he's super powerful, and when Qui-Gon says, I think he's the chosen one, and then Mace Windu says, oh, you mean the one who's going to bring balance to the Force? If they thought the Sith were extinct, they would have not said that. They would have been like, oh, cool, he's powerful with the Force. They wouldn't have a prophecy for someone to destroy the Sith if they weren't walking around. So I think that the Jedi have known for a very long time that the Sith were not extinct. I think that they didn't tell people about it because they didn't want people to panic. They didn't want people to seek out the Sith. They didn't want their enemies to combine with the Sith. And mostly they probably didn't want the Sith to know that they knew. So I think what happens is, I think in this show, right, the Sith 100% are trying to stay hidden. And I think they're going to kill a bunch of Jedi. And I think a lot of people are going to die. And I think at the end of it, Yoda is going to make the decision, like he did with the Leveler, to say, all right, let's not tell anyone about it. Here's the part that's going to be, I think, a really cool setup for the prequels. I think that whole prophecy of the one to destroy the Sith, I think that's going to happen in this show. I think that this show is going to give us a person who's special force ability is to see the future. All Jedi can kind of see the future, but different Jedi have specialties, like Cal Kestis can touch objects and read their memories, and Avar Kriss in the High Republic can like hear the Force and like combine other people into the Song of the Force. She's like a telepathic link. I think that what's going to happen is they're going to have a Jedi who is like uncannily good at this stuff, right? Who can zero in on the Force and predict it, right? And I think this Jedi, or maybe it's not the Jedi, maybe it's the Wills, the Guardians of the Wills that we saw in season 6 of the Clone Wars. It's going to be some Force user lays down this prophecy, and the Jedi then know, okay, we know there's going to be a chosen one. We know the Sith are still around. There will be a chosen one. We don't know who it is yet, but we have to be on the lookout. So maybe that's why, because if they would have revealed, okay, the Sith are around and there's a chosen one prophecy, then all of a sudden a bunch of people would say, I'm the chosen one. It would be harder to find the chosen one. But if people don't know about the prophecy, then the chosen one would just reveal him or herself. So that's how I think this is going to set up the prequel trilogy and solve one of the biggest plot holes in those movies. So guys, thank you for watching this with me. Again, check out our merch store. The links for all those different shirts I talked about are below. It really does help support our channel. But let me know what you thought about the trailer down in the comments below, or at me or Colton on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.